The world had not forgotten the morning of September 11th, 2001. Twin towers crumbled, smoke choked the New York skyline, and nearly 3,000 lives vanished in a heartbeat. Across oceans and continents, a single name haunted intelligence briefings, headlines, and secret meetings: Osama bin Laden. The mastermind behind the attacks, he had vanished into the shadows, leaving a trail of terror but no trace of his physical presence. To the world, he was a ghost. To the men and women hunting him, he was a mission that demanded every ounce of intellect, patience, and nerve. In a windowless office at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, analyst Jessica Miller hunched over a sea of satellite images. Each pixel represented hours of surveillance, each shadow a potential clue. Her team had been following leads across Pakistan, Afghanistan, and the broader Middle East for years, but the trail always seemed to vanish just when hope flared. "She's smart," she muttered under her breath, eyes scanning for patterns, but not invisible. Around her, other analysts clicked through intercepted phone calls, encrypted emails, and coded messages, trying to piece together the movements of a man who had turned secrecy into an art form. Across town, in a secure military training facility, Navy SEALs of Team 6 were preparing for missions that existed only in classified files. Among them was Lieutenant Commander Michael Hayes, a seasoned operator with more than a decade of combat experience. He ran drills with precise efficiency, but his mind was not only on technique, it was on the broader picture. Every SEAL understood the stakes. This was not just about capturing a terrorist. It was about justice, closure, and perhaps a measure of revenge for a nation still raw from wounds that had never fully healed. Weeks turned into months, and months into years. Analysts followed leads that ended in dead ends, infiltrated safe houses that turned out empty, and tracked couriers whose paths dissolved into the chaos of rural Pakistan. Bin Laden had become a phantom, moving like smoke through the intricate tapestry of human intelligence networks. And yet, there were whispers, a name here, a pattern there, small signals that suggested a hidden life, someone close to him who might lead the hunters to him. That someone emerged in the shape of a courier, a man with no face in the intelligence briefings, only a pattern of movements that suggested he was essential to bin Laden's network. Analysts tracked him relentlessly. Jessica and her team pored over every image, every intercepted conversation, and every unusual transaction. They mapped his movements from village to village, from one dusty highway to another, until finally the trail led to a walled compound in Abbottabad, Pakistan. It was an unassuming fortress, nestled among other homes, but its high walls, security measures, and isolated location screamed importance. It was exactly the kind of place that would hide the world's most wanted man. Back in Washington, the intelligence reached the highest levels. President Barack Obama convened secret meetings in the Situation Room. Generals, CIA directors, and national security advisors gathered around the table, the weight of history pressing down on every decision. They discussed options, weighing intelligence reliability against potential risks, debating the implications of a raid deep in foreign territory. "This is not just about catching a man," one advisor noted. "It's about sending a message, about showing that no one is beyond reach." Meanwhile, the SEALs began preparing for the possibility that the mission could come. They trained on full-scale replicas of the Abbottabad compound, simulating every possible scenario. Helicopters hovered in simulation rooms, door-breaching techniques were drilled, and split-second decision-making became second nature. Every detail mattered: civilian presence, booby traps, potential firefights, even the possibility of failure. "If we fail," Hayes told his team, "we're not just risking our lives, we're risking history." Tension was everywhere. Analysts felt it in the lines etched on their foreheads after nights without sleep. SEALs carried it in their muscles, ready for action but uncertain when the order would come. And above it all, the figure of Osama bin Laden loomed like a phantom enemy, always a step ahead, yet slowly, inexorably being cornered. Then came the breakthrough. The courier, a man known only by a code name, had stopped at the same compound repeatedly. Surveillance showed visitors entering and exiting, carrying messages but never staying long. Analysts, using both satellite imagery and human intelligence from local sources, noticed subtle patterns. The compound was highly self-contained, unusually fortified, and unnervingly quiet during the day. Everything pointed to one inescapable conclusion. Someone of immense importance lived inside those walls. The data hinted strongly that it was Osama bin Laden himself. The revelation sent shockwaves through the intelligence community. Years of painstaking work had narrowed the search from an entire region to a single building. The compound represented a chance that seemed almost impossible. Yet it was also a crucible. Any attempt to raid it carried enormous risks. Bin Laden's death or capture could make history, but failure could trigger international incident, political backlash, or catastrophic loss of life. As night fell over Langley, Jessica leaned back in her chair, staring at the images on her screen. The compound in Abbottabad glowed faintly under the cover of darkness. Somewhere inside, the man who orchestrated terror across the globe was hidden. Somewhere inside, the next move in a decade-long game of cat and mouse would be decided. Across continents, in their own silent spaces, Hayes and his SEALs waited for the call that could change everything. They reviewed plans, visualized the compound in minute detail, and imagined the cascade of actions that would unfold in a single night. Their training and courage would be tested to the extreme, but every one of them understood the stakes. This was not just about a mission. It was about justice, closure, and perhaps a measure of revenge for a nation still raw from wounds that had never fully healed. The hunt that had begun in shadows was now on the brink of entering the light. The world waited unknowingly, unaware that the final chapter in a decade-long pursuit was about to begin. And as the night air thickened over Abbottabad, the pieces of a historic puzzle clicked into place, poised to unleash one of the most daring operations in modern history. The Abbottabad compound sat quietly, almost innocuously, among the other houses in the suburb. From the outside, it seemed ordinary, yet every wall, every security measure, every shadow spoke volumes to those trained to read them. The CIA analysts had spent months piecing together the courier's movements, following him through villages, dusty roads, and safe houses, and now it all led here. Every pattern, every irregularity in his daily routine suggested a singular truth. Osama bin Laden was likely inside. Inside the CIA's secure operations room in Langley, monitors displayed feeds from satellites, drones, and human sources. Jessica Miller leaned over the screens, her brow furrowed, watching a figure move along the compound's perimeter. The courier's movements were methodical, almost ritualistic. Analysts compared night footage with daytime imagery, marking entrances, exits, and security blind spots. Each detail mattered. One misstep, one misread pattern could turn a historic mission into catastrophe. Miles away, Lieutenant Commander Michael Hayes and his SEAL Team 6 operators trained relentlessly. They had reconstructed a near-perfect replica of the Abbottabad compound in a secret facility. Every wall, every stairwell, every courtyard was duplicated to anticipate every scenario. Drills became ritual, helicopters hovering at precise altitudes, doors breaching in coordinated sequences, team members clearing rooms with split-second efficiency. Hayes repeated the same mantra to his team: precision, speed, no surprises. But despite the exhaustive training, an undercurrent of tension remained. They were preparing to storm a fortress built to conceal the world's most wanted man. As the intelligence grew more solid, the gravity of the operation reached the Situation Room in Washington, D.C. President Barack Obama sat at the head of the table, flanked by his national security team. The air was thick with anticipation. Generals, CIA officials, and advisors weighed the risks, the potential for failure, the possibility of civilian casualties, the political fallout if the mission went wrong. Maps of Pakistan, satellite images, and schematics of the compound littered the table. Every advisor had an opinion, but the stakes were singular. This was not just a military operation, it was history in the making. President Obama listened intently as intelligence officers outlined the courier's pattern and the compound's unusual security. The discussion pivoted to options: a drone strike, a joint Pakistani-American raid, or a covert insertion of elite SEALs. Each had risks. A drone strike might kill bin Laden, but would almost certainly destroy valuable intelligence and risk international backlash. A Pakistani-led operation could compromise operational secrecy. The covert SEAL raid offered the highest chance of precision but demanded near-perfect execution. After hours of deliberation, the decision crystallized. The SEALs would go in, under the cover of night, and extract the target, dead or alive. The stakes could not have been higher. Meanwhile, analysts continued refining the details. Jessica and her team studied aerial images of the compound, noting every vent, wall, and potential escape route. The intelligence was fragmented but compelling. Every time the courier entered or exited, every unusual pattern of movement within the compound, every sign of reinforced walls suggested preparation for something important. Analysts debated possibilities. Bin Laden could be hiding in plain sight, or the compound might conceal multiple high-value targets. The smallest anomaly, a door slightly ajar, a shadow moving unexpectedly, could be the key. Back in their training facility, the SEALs ran simulation after simulation. Hayes walked through scenarios: a firefight in a confined room, unexpected civilians, malfunctioning helicopters, and the critical moment of locating the target. Each drill was timed to the second. Each team member memorized the layout so that instincts would override thought. If something goes wrong, Hayes reminded them, we adapt, we finish the mission. Every man in the room understood the weight of those words. Decades of intelligence work, political maneuvering, and global anticipation had led to this point. As weeks passed, tension escalated. Pakistan remained unaware of the eyes watching them. Locals passing near the compound never suspected the shadows that tracked their movements from afar. Surveillance teams coordinated signals, synchronized watches, and double-checked every measurement. A single misstep, too loud a noise, too visible a light, could tip off the compound's occupants and destroy months of work. Finally, after exhaustive observation, analysts noticed a pattern. The courier made brief visits at almost exact intervals, returning each time with small parcels or messages. His loyalty was clear. He never ventured elsewhere. More crucially, no other person in the region matched his routine or level of secrecy. Analysts cross-referenced intelligence from other sources, intercepted phone calls, financial transactions, and reports from local informants. The convergence of evidence suggested with high confidence that the man inside the compound, connected so tightly to the courier, was indeed Osama bin Laden. The news sent ripples through the intelligence community. Excitement mingled with apprehension. Jessica leaned back, staring at the compound on her screen, barely daring to breathe. Years of failure, frustration, and dead ends had led to this singular moment. The hunt that seemed endless had narrowed to one location, one building, one night. Preparations for the SEAL operation intensified. The team reviewed their mission plan endlessly. Helicopters were modified for stealth. Operators rehearsed multiple insertion and extraction scenarios. Every possible contingency was considered: anti-air defenses, civilian interference, unanticipated security measures inside the compound, or the presence of other high-value targets. Hayes knew that the window for success would be narrow, measured in seconds, not minutes. In Langley, Jessica and her team continued monitoring the courier's movements. The compound's routine was predictable now, almost like clockwork, yet the analysts remained vigilant, aware that a single change could invalidate the plan. Months of painstaking observation had produced a final layout of the compound, a blueprint of every wall, stairwell, and hidden corner. The intelligence was solid, but no one underestimated the risks. As night fell over Abbottabad, the world outside remained unaware that history was about to be written. The compound's walls, silent and foreboding, concealed the man who had become a global symbol of terror. Inside CIA and Pentagon command centers, the SEALs and the President's Situation Room, tension coiled like a spring. The hunt had reached its climax. Months of intelligence work, planning, and preparation were about to meet action. In a few short hours, the shadows would be pierced by a bold, precise strike, and the world would never be the same. The night was quiet over Abbottabad, but the calm was deceptive. In a secret airstrip hundreds of miles away, Navy SEAL Team 6 waited, helicopters lined up and engines idling softly, modified for stealth. Each operator double-checked gear, night vision goggles, weapons, communications devices, and body armor. Lieutenant Commander Michael Hayes moved among them, his voice low but firm. "Tonight we make history. Precision, speed, no mistakes." The men nodded, each one fully aware that a single misstep could turn a historic operation into catastrophe. As the helicopters lifted off into the darkness, the only sound was the muted hum of rotors, designed to evade radar detection. Below, the streets of Abbottabad lay silent. Civilians slept unaware that a shadow of elite operatives was descending upon a compound that had concealed the world's most wanted man for nearly a decade. Every operator knew the stakes. This mission was not just a raid, it was the culmination of years of intelligence, planning, and unrelenting pursuit. The SEALs approached the compound from different angles, guided by GPS and the intelligence painstakingly gathered over months. The lead helicopter hovered above the perimeter, silent except for the whisper of rotors. Hayes and his point team readied breaching tools. Inside the helicopters, tension was palpable. Some operators adjusted night vision goggles, others ran mental checklists, and a few simply closed their eyes for a moment, steeling themselves for what was to come. With a controlled precision that could only come from years of training, the SEALs descended onto the compound. The first breach was flawless, walls scaled, gates bypassed, and cameras rendered useless. They moved like shadows, every footstep calculated, every room approached with lethal intent. Hayes led the point team, clearing rooms in a choreographed rhythm honed through countless simulations. The compound, which had seemed impervious to the outside world, began to fall apart under their careful, deliberate assault. Inside, the team moved floor by floor, room by room. Operators checked corners, doorways, and stairwells with practiced efficiency. Every creak of a floorboard or muted sound of movement could signal danger. The tension was almost unbearable. One miscalculation could trigger a firefight or alert bin Laden. But the SEALs were trained for such pressure. They operated as one seamless unit, eyes scanning, weapons ready, hearts steady. Then it happened. Intelligence had indicated that bin Laden was likely in the third floor of the main building. Hayes and his team approached, carefully clearing the staircase. The air was thick with anticipation, the operators acutely aware of history being made in each silent step. In a final, quiet sweep, they entered the room. There he was, Osama bin Laden, the man who had eluded capture for years, the orchestrator of terror, the world's most wanted fugitive. The confrontation was swift. Hayes and his team acted decisively. Bin Laden resisted briefly, but the SEALs' precision was unmatched. In a matter of moments, the operation achieved its ultimate goal. Osama bin Laden was dead. The relief was immediate, yet tempered by the awareness that the mission was not over. Every operator knew that they had to secure the scene, collect intelligence, and exfiltrate without leaving a trace or risking further conflict. They moved quickly, securing computers, documents, and electronic devices. Each piece of intelligence was a treasure trove, capable of unraveling networks, exposing plots, and providing insight into terrorist operations around the globe. The SEALs worked with the same speed and discipline that had brought them success, ensuring that nothing was left behind and every risk was mitigated. Outside, the helicopters waited silently. The extraction was as precise as the insertion, every movement calculated. The team boarded with a calm born of preparation, lifting off into the night. The compound receded below them, now a conquered target, the world's most wanted man no longer a shadow, but a closed chapter in the ongoing story of global counterterrorism. Back in Washington, as intelligence analysts watched live feeds and received initial confirmations, disbelief gave way to elation. President Obama was briefed in real time, his expression somber yet resolute. "It's done," one official finally said. "Osama bin Laden is dead." Across the nation, celebrations would erupt in hours, but in that moment, history was being witnessed in silence, the magnitude of the operation sinking in for those who had orchestrated it and executed it with flawless precision. Even as the relief swept through the teams involved, the story was far from over. Analysts began poring over the intelligence gathered: emails, documents, phone records, and hard drives. Each item could unlock secrets, dismantle networks, and prevent future attacks. The mission, while complete, opened a new chapter in intelligence operations, one that would define global counterterrorism for years to come. For the SEALs, the aftermath was quiet but heavy with meaning. They returned to secure bases, their minds processing the enormity of what had occurred. They had succeeded where countless others had failed, bringing closure to a decade-long pursuit. Yet, amid the triumph, there was also solemn reflection: the lives lost, the cost of a decade of warfare, and the ongoing responsibility to protect a world that had been threatened by bin Laden's vision of terror. As dawn broke over the horizon, the operation that had seemed impossible was complete. The compound in Abbottabad, once the lair of the world's most wanted man, stood empty and silent. Osama bin Laden, the elusive ghost, was gone. The hunt had ended, but its impact was only beginning to ripple across the globe. Governments, intelligence agencies, and ordinary citizens alike would soon grapple with the consequences, celebrations, and questions that would follow this historic event. The SEALs, the analysts, the leaders, all understood that the operation would become legend. It was a mission defined by courage, planning, and precision. And while the world would remember the death of Osama bin Laden, those who had lived through the hunt and the raid knew that the real story lay in the months of preparation, the intelligence breakthroughs, and the incredible skill of the men who dared to enter the lion's den and emerge victorious. The raid was over. History had been made. And yet, in the quiet after the operation, a single truth remained clear: the fight against terror, the pursuit of justice, and the vigilance required to protect the world were far from over. The death of bin Laden marked the end of one chapter, but the story of counterterrorism, intelligence, and global security was still being written, and it would demand courage, patience, and unyielding resolve from those who stood on the front lines. The world awoke to news that seemed impossible. Osama bin Laden was dead. At 11:35 p.m. Eastern Time, President Barack Obama addressed the nation, his voice steady but grave, announcing that a decade-long hunt for the world's most wanted terrorists had finally ended. Across television screens, smartphones, and radios, Americans and people around the globe processed the historic revelation. For many, it was a moment of triumph. For others, it was a bitter reminder of lives lost and horrors endured in a decade scarred by terror. In Washington, D.C., jubilation and solemnity coexisted. Analysts in the CIA's secure operations rooms allowed themselves brief smiles, but their minds immediately turned to the intelligence recovered from the Abbottabad compound. Drives, documents, and communications had been seized, potential gold mines for understanding al-Qaeda networks, future plots, and the inner workings of a shadowy organization that had terrorized nations. Jessica Miller, still in Langley, watched the reports with a mixture of relief and anticipation. The hunt was over, but the real work, the painstaking dissection of years of intelligence, was just beginning. Meanwhile, Navy SEAL Team 6 operators quietly returned to their bases. They were heroes of an operation that would go down in history, but they bore little time for celebration. For them, the mission had been about precision, professionalism, and discipline. Lieutenant Commander Michael Hayes debriefed his team, emphasizing the importance of the intelligence collected. "The history books will remember tonight," he said, "but the work that comes next matters just as much." These men had operated in shadows, executing a mission few could even imagine. Their success was measured not only by bin Laden's death, but by the prevention of countless future attacks. Across the globe, reactions varied. In the United States, spontaneous celebrations erupted in cities like New York, Washington, and Boston. Crowds gathered in Times Square, waving flags, chanting, and weeping. For many, the death of bin Laden was closure, a symbolic justice for the tragedies of September 11, 2001. Families who had lost loved ones in the attacks allowed themselves a brief sense of relief, knowing that the man behind the world's most notorious terrorist organization would never harm again. But the response was not universally celebratory. In parts of the Middle East, protests and unrest erupted. Some mourned bin Laden as a figure of resistance against Western powers, while others feared retaliatory attacks by al-Qaeda affiliates. Intelligence agencies braced for potential violence, understanding that the operation, while successful, could provoke immediate consequences. The hunt had ended, but the battle against terror was far from over. In academic halls, newsrooms, and think tanks, discussions turned to the implications of the raid. Analysts debated the geopolitical consequences of a unilateral operation deep inside Pakistan. Questions arose about sovereignty, the future of counterterrorism, and the precedent set by covert actions in foreign territories. The Abbottabad raid had achieved tactical success, but the strategic and political ramifications would unfold for years. Leaders and policymakers began weighing the delicate balance between justice, security, and diplomacy in a complex, interconnected world. The recovered intelligence proved invaluable. Analysts sifted through emails, documents, and digital communications, uncovering networks, operatives, and operational plans. The materials provided insight into al-Qaeda's hierarchy, financing, and strategies. It also revealed long-standing alliances with other extremist groups, allowing governments to disrupt plots and dismantle networks. The death of bin Laden was not merely symbolic, it had immediate, tangible effects on global security operations. The shadow of terror that had loomed for years was diminished, if not entirely lifted. Meanwhile, the human stories behind the operation emerged. Families of SEALs, intelligence officers, and other personnel involved grappled with a mixture of pride, anxiety, and relief. These men and women had risked everything in the pursuit of justice. The public celebration of the mission often obscured the personal sacrifices, the sleepless nights, the intense training, and the constant pressure of operating in absolute secrecy. In Langley, Hayes, Jessica, and their colleagues quietly acknowledged each other's courage, knowing that the mission's success was built on the collaboration of countless unseen individuals. The political ramifications also shaped international relations. The raid underscored the capabilities of U.S. intelligence and military precision, sending a clear message to both allies and adversaries. Governments reevaluated their own counterterrorism strategies, intelligence sharing, and coordination. Meanwhile, Pakistan faced intense scrutiny for harboring the compounds unknowingly, raising questions about internal security and complicity. Diplomatic channels worked tirelessly to manage tensions while reinforcing cooperation against global terrorism. Culturally and historically, bin Laden's death became a moment of profound symbolism. For a generation that had grown up with the images of September 11th burned into memory, the operation represented closure, a tangible triumph against a faceless enemy. It was studied in military academies, dissected in intelligence seminars, and immortalized in media coverage worldwide. Yet historians noted that while the man was dead, the ideology he propagated remained a threat. The operation ended one chapter of the war on terror, but the larger struggle for peace, security, and counter-radicalization continued. Even the SEALs themselves reflected on the broader meaning. Hayes, speaking quietly in debriefing, said, "We did what we trained for. We completed the mission. But history isn't about a single moment. It's about the ripple effect, what comes after." Their heroism lay not only in the execution of the raid, but in the disciplined restraint, careful planning, and unwavering commitment to minimize collateral damage while achieving an unprecedented objective. As the world adjusted to the news, life slowly resumed its rhythms. Streets emptied after celebrations, governments implemented new security measures, and intelligence agencies analyzed the flood of data recovered. The death of Osama bin Laden became a historical milestone, a symbol of the relentless pursuit of justice, the power of meticulous intelligence, and the bravery of those willing to act in the shadows for the greater good. The operation demonstrated that even the most elusive threats could be confronted with courage, skill, and determination. Yet amid the triumph, a quiet tension lingered. Analysts, SEALs, and policymakers alike understood that global security challenges persisted. The death of a single figure, no matter how notorious, could not end the ideologies, conflicts, and networks that had caused a decade of terror. The fight against extremism would continue, demanding vigilance, collaboration, and courage. Bin Laden's death marked a chapter of the war on terror, but history's story was far from complete. The Abbottabad raid entered the annals of history not only as a daring military operation, but as a testament to human ingenuity, perseverance, and resolve. It was a story of shadows giving way to action, of intelligence transforming into precise execution, and of a world momentarily united in a complex mixture of relief, triumph, and reflection. The legacy of the operation, its lessons, its consequences, and its courage would be studied, remembered, and honored for generations. In the quiet after the storm, the world continued to turn. Abbottabad returned to its sleepy rhythms, unaware that its streets had once witnessed history. In offices across Langley, Washington, and secret military bases, analysts and operators documented every detail, ensuring that the lessons of the operation would endure. And though the man who had inspired fear for a decade was gone, the enduring truth remained clear. Courage, intelligence, and meticulous planning could confront even the most elusive threats, and in doing so, change the course of history.